It's April 15th, 2025. It's the Trenches episode. We're 9 days away from the NFL draft, and it's Talking Giants, presented by SeatGeek. My name is Justin Penik, and with me today, I have the He's a Giant guys. I have Monte, I have Sal. They host a Giants-centered NFL draft podcast that basically is that theme for the entire year, which I love. It's different. It's new. It's different from your conventional Giants podcast. Fellas, thank you for joining me. How are you doing?
Doing good, man. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you very much for having us. A lot of fun.
No problem. And like I said this. I did one take of an intro that I didn't like, so now I'm doing it again. And what I was starting to say in that is part of content creation is, how are you going to be different and how are you going to do other stuff that other people aren't doing. And there's a million Giants podcasts out there, but why I love you guys, and I'll always remember this. And Monty, like, I saw you at a Giants game back in 2023. And I think that's when you guys were starting to really kind of get the show going. And part of this content stuff is timing and being first and being best and all that stuff. Daniel Jones tears his ACL against the Raiders. I think a couple days later, you guys put out a massive quarterbacks ranking episode in the middle of the season.
Yep.
I mean, talk about being first. I mean, that and people were fired up, and I know that's kind of how you guys kind of got your first sprint, going on YouTube and the podcast apps and whatnot. So I love that you guys do this year round. It's different. It's unique. So I'm really glad to have you on. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be targeting guys in the trenches, interior offensive linemen / offensive tackles, but mainly interior defensive linemen. And these are targets for the Giants between picks 34 to picks 105, which I don't know about you guys. I want the Giants walking away with at least 2 trenches players from picks 34 to 105, and there's 4 of them outside of pick 3, obviously, but 34, 65, 99, and 105. I want the Giants walking away with some trench players, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, man. I totally agree. I mean, this is at least a loaded class on the defensive side of the ball. Definitely some good, interesting guys in the offensive side of the ball. We'll get into it. But yeah, man, appreciate you having us, Justin. And, you are always, very helpful and kind to me with all of us getting this going. I know if I've met you at the tailgates many times, and you've given me good advice for the show and, editing and all that stuff that I still use today. So, appreciate all of that, Justin. You're the best.
And if I may, I just wanted to say something. I mentioned it to you a little bit before. We're happy to be here. We're happy to talk ball, talk draft stuff. As you mentioned, like, this is what we do all year. We just love college football. But we're happy to be on your pod specifically because for all the craziness that happened before, and for anybody listening, this is not coerced or coached. You guys know, if you know me, I tell you whatever the hell I feel, and I don't really care what anybody thinks about it. I've watched carefully. We all have, as your show had an unfortunate change that I think nobody necessarily really wanted it to go down that way, but it did. Um, I wish both of you well. I really do. I think you both will be successful. I have no doubt about that. But for your part in this, I would say you've handled yourself and comported yourself really well. You've been really dignified in how you've approached it, very professional. Um, I'm a lot older than you guys, and I will tell you that I've been through various work environments, various phases of my life, and that stuff matters. I think you learn a lot about people and their character during these moments. You've handled yourself with extreme professionalism, and I think that whatever rough patch there may be in these transitions, that will bode well for you. And I'm pretty sure people who are seasoned and experienced in various careers will feel the same way. You've handled yourself really well and professionally, and I think that in the long run is going to bode well for you. So I definitely wish you the best.
No, thank you, man. It's been unique and interesting, kind of being this happening under a certain spotlight and having a lot of people say whatever they're going to say and think whatever they're going to think, and that's fine and that's cool. And I was telling you guys, probably the thing that's bothered me most, and this is the first time I'm saying this, probably the thing that's bothered me most about this is that my work ethic and my overall effort and my how hard I work has been kind of put into question, which that's probably the thing out of everything. Even the company that I work for, that's probably the thing that I've least enjoyed because I work hard, and I think especially this time of year, you kind of have to work hard. Like you can't just say whatever you want to say, or else you're going to sound pretty dumb, and you're going to sound unprepared. So this is the time of the year where the hard work kind of has to show off the most. But I'm thankful that you guys are here. I'm thankful that you guys have kind of had my back, and we're going to talk ball. Again, the theme of the episode is players that the Giants could target basically between picks 34 to 105, maybe on the extreme end of things if some of these players fall. Very deep class when it comes to, I think, offensive linemen as a whole. I feel like there's a ton of tackles that you could say that they're guards, and a ton of interior defensive linemen. We're not going to be talking really any edge rushers in this because I think there's just so many interior defensive linemen. I think there's 12 interior defensive linemen that are ranked inside the top 105 on the consensus board, which is kind of crazy and insane when you consider that there's 15 wide receivers that are ranked inside the top 105, and I think there's only 11 corners. And why is that significant? Because there's always more corners and receivers on the field typically than interior defensive linemen, where there could be at most, I think, 3 if you're playing with 3 down linemen, 4 down linemen. I feel like that's kind of rare to put 4 of the interior guys on the field at one time. So the fact that there's 12 inside the top 105, I think, is a very unique thing for this year, and luckily it's a position of need for the Giants.
The funny thing too is it's been a position that's been pretty shallow in the last few drafts. Last year, it definitely had some more guys, and it was like, hey, finally we're getting it. But like this year makes last year look shallow, and the years before that there were like nothing.
I think this is fortuitous for the Giants because Joe Shane has largely ignored the defensive tackle position since he's gotten here.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass.
I mean, when he came
here,
round, remember he got here, he inherited Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence, and we didn't know how good Dexter Lawrence would be until Wink Martindale got his hands on him. But still, he had Dexter Lawrence, he had Leonard Williams, and if I recall, there were some other guys that in depth, and he just kind of shed guys over the years and never really added guys. I mean, DJ Davidson, Jordan Riley, like completely ignoring it, while probably having the best interior defensive line coach there is in the NFL, and really gave him nothing to work with, which was always shocking to me. So this is well timed. We need help, and this class is deep, man. I mean, I think we'll go through these players, but you don't have to swing round 1 on DT in this class. You may get a player who's comparable round 2. You may get pass rushing guys round 3. You may get guys who can stop the run at a high level, at least 2 down linemen deep into the draft, deep into day 3. Like, this is a unique class. So it's a good time for Joe Shane to have a need. I'll put it that way. It worked out well for him. Let's hope he takes it seriously.
Yeah. So I want to start off with Darius Alexander. It's really funny that we're recording this episode, and I love the timing of it because the day that we're recording this, on April 14th, on Monday, the Giants reportedly had a top 30 visit with Darius Alexander, which is awesome. 6'4", 305 pounds from the University of Toledo. He's going to be 25 by the time the season starts. So, fellas, I'll hand it over to you. I mean, this is your show with talking about these prospects. I'll give my input. Whenever somebody comes up and takes a breath, but whoever reads the reports or whoever wants to take it first about Darius Alexander, let's talk about him.
No, we reviewed Alexander several weeks ago. After the season, we went back and wanted to go through extra players. We were doing like 2 players a week. Alexander is the guy we profiled. Let's start with who he is. He's a 6th-year player. He's a super senior out at Toledo, and he's a guy that didn't get a ton of playing time until just more recently. Last year he logged 672 snaps in 2023 and had another 630 this year. And he's largely a 3-tech. He plays almost exclusively in the B gap. He moves around a little bit, and he has the athleticism to do so. But basically, he's your every down 3-tech. Big dude. I pulled up his RAS here, and he tested really well. Measurables, he came in just under 6'4", 305 pounds, 10-inch hands, 34-inch arm length. That is important for an interior D tackle. He's got that coveted arm length. You hear a guy like Andre Patterson talk about this all the time. He wants guys who have the arm length to be disruptive in passing lanes and be able to punch out and get distance. He ran 4.8, no, I'm sorry, 4.9, 640, which was great for a D tackle of his size, a 1.73 10-yard split, and he had a 31.5-inch vertical at that size, which is pretty impressive, and a 9-foot 4-inch broad jump. Tested really well. His overall RAS came out to 9.72. When you watch him on tape, even though he's an older prospect, you're seeing a guy who I think there's a lot of if you want to, he's not the same type of player, but if you want an older prospect that popped in his final year that you think can be an immediate impact defensive tackle, think of Braden Fisk last year. He was a guy that took a long time to hit, but when he hit big, and he came in and was an immediate impact player for the Rams this year. I think Alexander has the potential to be that kind of player. Big guy, a lot of length, strong. One thing Monty and I noticed when we talked about him the first time is this guy, when you watch him on tape, has an incredible motor. Like he
Mhm.
never stops moving. He's fighting nonstop. He's strong as an ox, and he knows how to use it. There are times where his size gets the best of him, where he will lose his leverage battles, and he'll get a little bit too tall. He'll sometimes move a little bit too quick, in my opinion, and lose contain at times. But for the most part, what you're getting is a guy who, right off the bat, is probably going to be a big positive three-tech run defender. Like right off the rip, he's strong. He can stack and shed. He will be an asset in the run game next to a guy like Dexter Lawrence. And with the way he plays and with his measurables, you give him to a guy like Andre Patterson, I think this guy could be a pass rushing demon if he has a little bit of time to develop. So I love this guy. He's right at the top of my list of guys I would target at pick 34 if he's there.
Yeah, I'm right. We're there with you, Sal. And I think what you touched on at the end is key. We're going to talk about some guys today, and there's some guys we're not going to talk about who are really good run defenders, which is obviously something the Giants need because of how awful we've been against the run, but really don't offer that much upside as a pass rusher. I don't see that as the case here with Darius Alexander. He definitely has to refine some things. He doesn't have like a real pass rush plan, it seems to me. But and definitely you mentioned like his pad level can be high and that can mess with things. And it definitely the production came late and all that stuff. But despite him being an older prospect and things like that, I still think this guy has some real potential as a pass rusher, on top of just being, a high motor, like very, very good run defender. I mean, I think the height, the pad level can mess with him, but I do think he plays well with the leverage he has. He almost has like a rest. I think he is a former wrestler, and that
Yeah.
does pop on tape to me at times. One thing I do want to call, I was reading Brugler had to say about him earlier. Did you guys see who he comped him to?
Leonard Williams.
Yep, former Giant Leonard Williams. So, that's an interesting one. They got the long arms and the frame. So, that would be great. I know there's obviously some issues. Bringing a 25-year-old rookie, but getting a guy coming into kind of the prime of his career. I could definitely see the value of it. If he fell and we got him at 65, oh my God. But I think you're going to have to take him here at 34.
So much of this preview and a lot of the players that we watched, and this is offense and defense, there are certain themes and certain things that stick out to me every year when I watch the draft. And this year, for whatever reason, I am paying attention to players' hands way more than I have in previous years. I don't know if that is like, maybe that's like an Andre Patterson thing, and the Giants need interior defense alignment, so I'm paying way more attention than them, and I'm watching them more this year, and shit like that. And what was the thing that unlocked Dexter Lawrence with Andre Patterson? It's how he used his hands. So I don't know if it's a Giants thing, it's a fan thing, how I'm watching, but I'm almost splitting this up into, and this is, again, offensive and defensive line. I have a lot of notes on hands and arms and arm length and all this, and guys that use them well and guys that sometimes don't use their hands or their arms that well. Darius Alexander, not only does he have good arm length, but he knows how to use his arms. He knows how to use his hands. He has heavy hands, long arms combo. When you combine that, I think you're going to get some mean bull rushes. But also he's looking to punch and strike. It's not just a bull rush. He can do a nice swim move as well. He turns that into one-arm stems, and he can move that way. Stack and shed, all that shit. Third in pass rush win rate in true pass sets among draft-eligible players this year. The only question that I have, we've talked about how he's a little bit older. The only question that I have, and I'm bringing him in on a top 30 visit, right? I'm Joe Shane. I'm bringing him on top 30 visit. The main thing that I'm asking him is, we finally saw his best play at 23 to 24 years old. And in particular this year, even in the second half of this year, wasn't even all of this year, where 6 of his 8 QB hits came after week 9. So it seemed like the second half of this year and after week 9, he unlocked something. That game against Pitt, the bowl game against Pitt, just was totally unblockable. The Senior Bowl, which I know you guys, I know you guys have I have a bias towards the Senior Bowl because I love that trip. I go on it. I watch these guys. I watch them compete. I love watching ball. So I know you guys feel like, you shouldn't take too much stock into the Senior Bowl, and I get that. But even there, like he dominated at the Senior Bowl. So my question at Alexander is, you're going to be 25 by the time the season starts. What kind of took so long? Because you have these traits, you have all of these things that like are showing like you have the potential here, but why did it basically almost take until the second half of this year to truly unlock that stuff that did make your tape great at Toledo? That's the main thing that I'm asking him. Yeah. What unlocked in you towards the second half of this year? That's my main question.
Which, I think is a totally valid question because, one thing is worth considering with, these late breakouts is like, why did it take until you were 24 years old to start dominating? Especially
at Toledo. If you're going to an SEC school, I'm like, all right, I kind of get it. But it's Toledo, considering the competition that he went up against, and his age. Like, I'm not denying that there's stuff here, and I am going to believe in it. And, like you guys said, if he's there at 34, he's one of the guys that I want to target, and I'll feel really good that we acknowledge that position nice and early. But those are just the questions that I have. And if I was in the building and if I had a chance to kind of get my hands on these guys, which is one of the things that bothers me most about the pre-draft process, is that we're not able to get that vital information of their perspective on things. That's the main thing that I'm kind of asking. But I agree with everything that you guys say, but especially the arm length and what he can do with his hands on top of his size, on top of his strength. I think that's what sets him apart, as opposed to a guy that could be, in the third round, 65 or even going back further. That's what I think makes him like a top end of the second round player for me.
So there's a little background about him that I think is worth noting. So he was a 3-star recruit when he came out of high school, and I think he joined Toledo in 19, and I think he came out as a defensive end. They switched him to offensive tackle. I don't know if you know that.
What?
Yeah. So he redshirted as an offensive tackle, and he spent his first developmental year redshirting to learn offense, and then they switched him back to 2020, but only that was the COVID year, so he back to defense, and he didn't really get full college defensive play until about 2021. So I think there's a little bit of that where they moved him around. He started as defense in high school as a 3-star recruit. They switched for whatever reason, maybe because of his length, they moved him to offensive tackle and then back to defense, and then COVID hits. So there's a little bit of that. And you're going to see that in some of the guys this year, especially the older prospects. Like, this is the last of the COVID screw ups, and I think there's a little bit of nuance to his story. I totally am usually I'm totally with you usually when you see an older guy take years and years to develop and become good, and then you wonder, why are you suddenly good? I'm really skeptical. Like, to me, I have those questions more about Tyler Shuck. Why did it take you to become, why did you need to get to your Van Wilder graduation year to finally look like a decent NFL, like a decent college quarterback? I'm very skeptical about him, but I think there is some there, and he's had injuries too. But still, I mean, I think Alexander, there's a little bit more there. Plus, when you tie in the athleticism, right? He was a Feldman freak. It makes a stronger case. Like, it's not just a guy who's been there forever and is finally doing good against 19-year-olds. He is a phenom athlete, bounced around a little bit for whatever reason in positional changes the first couple of years, and now he's putting his athletic traits together. I can buy that. I can definitely buy that production.
Agreed.
All right, ready to move on to Donovan Jackson?
Yes. Definitely.
Speaking of long arms, Donovan Jackson, 6'4", 315 pounds from Ohio State, recently turned 22. He's 37th on the consensus board, did have a top 30 visit with the Giants. And before I toss it to you guys, greater than 90th percentile arm length and wingspan. Donovan Jackson's journey this year, was quite unique. So who wants to talk about it from Ohio State?
Monty's got this one.
Yeah, I'll take the lead on this one. I mean, I actually went back to that and listened to our episode of Donovan Jackson. We had Donovan Jackson in our interior offensive line episode when we first talked about him. And, he was the number one rated guard in the country coming out going to Ohio State. And he primarily was a guard his entire career there. And then this last year, and I think it speaks to the teammate he is and whatnot, is when Josh Simmons got hurt, he got moved to left tackle. And I'll tell you, he got moved to left tackle, and this guy got absolutely dominated in his first game. He had some issues. He had to go up against Abdul Carter, one of the best players in the class, and he had his issues going up against playing the tackle position. But this is a guy who got better and better and better throughout the year. And that's where I really started to grow my love for Donovan Jackson. We really liked Donovan Jackson. Now, I was listening to what we said back then. We said he was like one of the highest like ceiling guards, that we really, really loved his athleticism. I'll get into all that. But down the stretch, he absolutely dominated and was a huge reason Ohio State is national champion this year. And, I love that for him. And, you mentioned, Justin, that arm length. He has longer arms than, his teammate Josh Simmons, who went down, is really kind of the guy who they're looking at left tackle. And after the play by Donovan Jackson, I'm starting to wonder, like, is Donovan Jackson really, is his place at tackle in the NFL? And,
Right.
yeah. And is he, how does he compare to Simmons? Because I think it's closer, honestly, than some people might think. I think he's an incredible athlete. I think he's exceptional foot quickness. I think he has really good lateral agility. He mirror very well. I think he's a finisher. Constantly finishing blocks. I think he's has a really good high level football IQ. You constantly see him like reacting well to stunts and finding blitzers, and you can see him calling out defenses to the rest of his line. He's a veteran there. I think he has a really good first step. I think he has exceptional grip strength, and he's a guy who they get out into space, and he's really good at pulling and getting to the second level, especially as a guard. I think solid anchor, like really a lot to like about his game. Some of the negatives, I do think he can lunge and has some balance issues at times. I know Giants fans don't love hearing the balance issues. I know probably having PTSD about that, but he plays a little high. That was something that I had a biggest issue when he was at guard. I actually think his height wasn't too much of an issue at tackle, but I did think it was a little bit of an issue at guard specifically. Although I do think he's a good grip, good finisher. I do think he could play with a little bit more strength, especially in the run game. He can sometimes overshoot blocks with his angles and whatnot, but man, overall, I really think this is like a high ceiling player, especially at guard, and really a guy who I think can be a capable tackle in the NFL, maybe more than that. I know you were a really big fan too, Sal.
Yeah. Talk about guys who would be at the top of my board at 34 to take, right? Jackson, he might be number one, like what we saw him do at tackle. Like, I don't know if you watch college football and you followed these teams throughout the year, how you can watch what he was able to do at left tackle game after game, get better, 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 and then downright dominant going into the national title
In
game.
season, which is crazy.
Right, in season. And against as the competition got better and better and better,
Yes.
he got better and better. It's hard to ignore that. Or we're like, this guy looks like I remember we were talking about it, we're like, is he just a really damn good tackle? Like, this is not just a fill-in, is he a legit NFL tackle? And then you get the combine measurements. And you're like, wait a minute, he has the wingspan, he has the arm length, he's a great athlete, he's a great mover in space. He has the lateral agility to mirror guys and to take on speed. We know that already, right? And he needs some coaching, but he can do that physically. But he took on like guys who were trying to bull rush him, got nowhere. He took on guys who would try the outside inside move, nowhere. And he was just stonewalling guys. I'm like, what did he play, like 6 or 7 games to tackle? and he looked elite. Like really, at the end of it, I think this is a guy who's going to actually stick at NFL tackle. I actually
Mm,
believe that. Like if he gets drafted at tackle and he gets a shot to play somewhere, I wouldn't be shocked if he just took over a job. I'm not saying he's going to be like an all pro, but a starting NFL tackle, how valuable is that, right? And I think he can stick there. For the Giants specifically, you've got, our best player is a guy who can't stay healthy,
right.
and wouldn't you love to have a guy who can stick at left, who's done this before, right? He can be a starting guard for you if you need, but if you said, hey, in season, you're our starting left guard, but AT just his foot got messed up again.
Mm-hmm.
Go play left tackle. I feel pretty confident with Donovan Jackson holding up there.
Yeah.
A lot more than I do with Josh Azudu or any of the other characters they brought over the years. So I think he's really valuable. And listen, if AT stays healthy and you keep Jermaine Illuminor, let's say you keep him after this year, Jackson being your starting left guard for several years is not a bad thing. He's a really good guard. So I think this is a high value pick if the Giants decide if he's there at 34, and I'm not sure he will be. I wouldn't be shocked if he got taken in the first round because I think
Yeah.
everybody's thinking about him like this. But if he's there at 34, I might be running up with his name on the card, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with that. He may give the cookie cutter answer of, oh, what do you want to be in the NFL? Do you want to be a guard or a tackle? Well, I'm just going to play wherever they tell me to play. Well, no, it's like if I get him a room, I'm like, come on, man, just like what do you really want to do? He has 31 starts at left guard and he has 9 at left tackle. And we mentioned that I think the first 2 or 3 were a little bit on the rougher side because one of them was against Abdul Carter. Well, hey, welcome to left tackle, buddy. But then it gets tremendously much better. His last 5 or 6 get much better, especially that game against Texas, where he just absolutely dominates. And it's funny. I started out watching him as a guard, knowing that all right, he's eventually going to make the move to tackle. And I'm seeing how he sets. I'm like, this is tackle feet. Like these are tackle sets. Like the foot speed and his balance and how he's able to the way that he's able to move his feet. I'm like, this is what a tackle does. Which impressed me just right off the bat. So I don't have a strong opinion on where he's going to go. I think I lean the 31 starts over the 9 that he got at tackle, and like, hey, let's go what we know with the short thing. But also we know that the NFL is trending towards positional versatility because there's just offensive linemen are not good. There's the majority of them are okay to not very good in the NFL. And teams are going to value guards that can kick to tackle since that's just way more important, and tackles, left tackle, I think is the second most important position of football. And teams are going to value those guys that can kick out there, even if it's a starter. Like we're willing to move that starter out of guard to tackle because of how important that spot is. So I'm with you guys in everything that you said. The only reason why I think he is a little bit more better suited at guard, I think he doesn't vary his punch enough. I think his punch is wide. And what I would want to see, like you see a lot of these tackles, again, I'm talking about hands and I'm talking about arms. You see a lot of guys like, oh, I'm gonna set my hands different here. I'm gonna go with one arm here and I'm gonna try and set you up different so you don't necessarily know what's coming. I think his punch is wide, and I think it's the same kind of over and over and over again. And I think edge rushers can easily kind of set him up. I think he has positional versatility. Am I putting him out there at tackle if Andrew Thomas goes down and he's the Giants' starting left or right guard? Yes, I am not hesitating on that for a second. But I do think he fits better at guard. I'm going with the 31 starts that he has at left guard, and I'm trusting that for now.
Yeah, I mean, I think getting a guy like Donovan Jackson, for all the reasons we've talked about, is the ideal situation because, we really need a guy that can keep our season from falling apart every single time Andrew Thomas gets hurt. But, ideally, if you're drafting a guy this high, it's not to be a backup tackle. It's so you can put him in and be a starter somewhere else. So, I'm a big fan of Donovan Jackson. Also, another freakless guy.
All right, before we keep talking with Sal and Monte, we got to talk about Cushy Dreams. Yeah, it's been a minute, but because it's 420, we got to talk about Cushy Dreams. It's the annual holiday that everybody loves. And it's a real holiday. On April 20th, we're celebrating with our friends at Cushy Dreams. They're the best in legal cannabis, and this 420, it's their 5th anniversary. They're celebrating with a big 30% off sale and free limited edition swag. And right now you can take 30% on all their best stuff. That's high-powered THCA flower, chill, smokable CBD, euphoric, love that word, THC gummies, and other THC pre-rolls that get the job done. And since you're a fan of us, you get a special deal on Cushy Dreams Cannabis, 30% off everything, and every order over $50 enters you to win a Cushy Dreams t-shirt and free 8 THC products. So go to cushydreams.com, that's KUSHY dreams.com, use promo code JOHNBOY420 to get 30% off your next order for a greater savings, and get 30% off and enter to win free stuff with promo code JOHNBOY420 today. That's Cushy Dreams, it's 420, celebrate with them. Back to talking with Monte and Sal. All right, we're going to go back to defensive side of the ball, and this is a player that I've already talked about. I did a mock draft 2 weeks ago, kind of fell in love with him there. Alfred Collins from the University of Texas, 6'6", 332 pounds. He's 23 and a half years old. Oh, wow, look, another guy with long arms, 91st percentile in arm length, and oh boy, does Alfred Collins know how to use those hands, those arms, stack and shed, consensus ranking of 62. He's a powerful player. Sal, why don't you tell me about him?
Yeah, he's an athlete. And you mentioned it. He has the desirable measurables that you're looking for in a prototype interior defensive lineman. Long arms, 6'5", like you mentioned. And he played. He's the kind of guy you look for on the interior when you're looking for a prototype. So he played football. He played basketball. He was a track athlete. I think he was a shot and put guy in Texas. So he has that athletic background. I don't think he was a wrestler, which I hate. But we look for that, right, on these interior guys. But
he plays like he was a wrestler.
He kind of does, right? I mean, he has.
I mean, you tell me Marcus Mbow played basketball. I'm like, yeah, that's a guy that played basketball because he's wild. Alfred Collins playing basketball and not being a wrestler kind of surprises me.
Right. I think that when you look at his prototype, well, let's just start with the film. Right off the bat, what you see in him is he's at minimum a 2-down run defender and a starting 2-down run defender in the NFL, right? I think that's his floor.
Mm-hmm.
He's he's Ashawn Robinson, like at his floor, right? Mm-hmm. I think something like that, right? Is he an impact pass rusher yet? No, I would say not yet. And there's a little bit of lack of pass rush arsenal, lack of urgency in his game to try to penetrate into the backfield and be a pass rusher. But focus on what he does well for a guy. You're talking about taking a guy maybe in the middle of the third round, maybe in the fourth round, depending on how the draft goes, right? He could fall to the back in the third. Who knows? He might be a guy
65. I think this would be a 65 target.
It's very possible. But he might be a guy that gets to the 90. Like, you just don't know, right? Yeah. Day 2 is so dense. Like, guys will slide depending on needs. But I agree. I think 65 is probably the target. But you have to know what you're getting right off the bat. I think he's a starting run defense 3-tech who's going to give you about 70% of the snaps right off the bat. Like, I think you can count on him to get 60 to 70% of the snaps right off the bat, being a reliable run defender. When you have Dexter Lawrence next to you and you're not asking him to do that much more other than just stop the run, he's awesome at it. His length it's tantalizing, right? I think there's more there. I think he has the tools to do more as a pass rusher, but what he does really well is not get pushed backwards and create a big block, which I love what these 3-techs do, stop the run, like he's kind of almost like a Kirkland version of Tyleik Williams in many ways, right? He's going to stand there and not he may not go forward, but he's certainly not going backwards, right? And I think so that gives you a high floor, and that's what he is at the end of the day. He's a very good tackler. When he gets anywhere near the ball carrier, his long arms get out there, and he snares them, and they're gone. And he does not let guys get by him. Again, the only knocks on him are really that he's not an established pass rusher at this point. I don't know if he's going to develop that at the next level. I personally am not in the camp that thinks that you can always develop these things. I think what they are is what they are, and you should take guys for what they are, what they do well. But is what they do well going to match your need and the value of where you would take them? If you're talking about pick 65, a mid-day 2 pick, a starting 2-down defensive tackle who can eat the run game, and next to Dexter Lawrence for this team, very valuable. And that's how I look at him.
Yeah. I mean, I think the great thing, I mean, you touched on all of it, Sal, but the great thing is this isn't just like a big boy who just, fills a lot of gaps with his mass. It's more than that. He's a guy who uses that arm length so well. Like you said, he stacks and sheds. He really gives himself he's a true two-gapper who can, really, he can lure the running backs inside, or he can, really like shed and make a tackle. He's so good in the run game and just a very, very strong tackler, as you mentioned. Just absolutely, we see him just lay guys out with his massive body. It's very fun to watch, very agile player. Yeah, like you said, my only concern is I don't know how much of an upside I see of him as a pass rusher. Certainly, he has a lot of traits that I could see it happen, but he's so inefficient at times with it, and I see him just trying to like almost like run back and loop around. He doesn't really have a good counter move. So
he has one big strength that I failed to mention in the passing game, though. He uses his arm length to bat balls. He had 6 batted balls this year.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's a big number, right? Like if your eyes are, what that tells me is he's able to keep his eyes locked on the quarterback as he's pushing the pocket, and if he's able to disengage his arm long enough, quick enough to get that ball up there and take away throwing lanes over the middle of the field, that's huge, right? Having a guy who can do that consistently, it limits the other team's offense. So I do think that should be mentioned in his pass game.
Yeah, I mean, and part of that's instinctual too, and he has that to automatically get your arms into passing lanes as soon as you see them about like some guys just have the instinct and get those arms up there the second he can do it and time it, and he has that absolutely.
Out of the defensive linemen that are not going to be taken in night one, so that's Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon. Those are the guys that are ranked inside, the top 32 on the consensus board. It will not surprise me if Alfred Collins is the best day 2 and day 3 interior defensive lineman. It will not. If anything, I would put money on it, and here's why. I agree with you guys about the pass rushing upside. This is one of those things that I'm like, oh, we'll give him the Andre Patterson, and this is a guy that already uses his hands really well and stacks and shit. Like, be strong, man. Like you're strong. Like I think you can unlock power and using your hands as a pass rusher a little bit. Like you already do that stuff against the run. Guys are already moving backwards in pass pro. Bull rush him. You use power. I feel like he has that parts to his game, and I feel like this is a guy that it may take a little time, and I feel like it does with some of these interior defensive linemen. And I use Travis Jones as an example, just a former draft crush that I had from UConn a couple years ago.
Yep.
That I'm like, God damn, that was a miss. And now you're looking at Baltimore the last 2 years, and especially this year, and like, oh, Travis Jones is making plays here. Travis Jones is making plays there. And you even see it with guys like Dexter Lawrence. Now, obviously, that's a much better example for Dex, first round pick versus Travis Jones fell a little bit. But sometimes it takes these interior defensive linemen 2 to 3 years to really come about. And I can see that maybe being the case with Alfred Collins. Like having such dominant flashes and dominant stuff in college, it may take a little bit of time to get there in the pros, because there's going to be a transition of, guys are going to be powerful, guys are going to be bigger, guys are going to be stronger. But then as he gets there in his second and third year, I think that's where it's really going to unlock for Collins. So I'm not going to get discouraged if he's not that good right away. But even from day one, if I'm a little discouraged about, oh, well, he's not really giving much as a pass rusher, even from day one, I think he can be a solid run defender. Because Sal, what you said is he doesn't get moved. Now, he was 12th in total run stops this year among draft-eligible players, but his average depth of tackle wasn't great. So what that kind of tells me is I don't necessarily think he's getting pushed back and then he's making tackles. I just think that he's not getting moved, and I think that's what the film shows. He's not going to produce a ton of these negative plays for you, but I'll certainly take on a 2nd and 8. I'll take a 3-yard run to make it a 3rd and 5, and then let's allow our pass rush to pin their ears back. We'll take Alfred Collins off the field. He did his job, and we'll allow the pass rush that we've established here with the Giants to go and eat and go and get it. So I am very okay. Maybe not in the first or second round, especially because I don't think Alfred Collins is the most elite run stopper I've ever seen. But at pick 65, if I'm drafting somebody that's, oh, this guy's just a first and second down player, at least for now, I am totally fine with that because of what he shows as a run defender, because he can toss dudes out of the way like they're children, because his his trump card is that he is a run defender and he is a run stopper. And I do think that this is a guy that, like, we say it as a joke as Giants fans. I do think that this is a guy that Andre Patterson could really unlock further. I really love Alfred Collins. I'm a stan.
One of the things we have to always take into account here, at least for now, is that you have Dexter Lawrence, right? I mean, why do you have Dexter Lawrence? I know it sounds silly to ask, but he's a cheat code. I mean, nobody else has a nose tackle who's going to command double and triple teams and still get pass rush, right? And still disrupt the passing game and be elite in the run game and everything else. There is no rep in which Dexter Lawrence cannot be double teamed. He must be double teamed. Not a lot of nose tackles need that, right? Like they don't always need that. So Dex always gets that double team, which means the guys next to him, and people like to talk about, well, how does it affect Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns? The way this defense is constructed, not at all, right? They're way wide. They're off somewhere else. Where we need to make impact, in my opinion, are the three techs and the defensive ends that are around Dexter Lawrence. We need guys who can take advantage of those one-on-ones that can be one gappers or just one straight up one-on-one against somebody. And you do wonder if you could take a guy like Collins and he's never facing a double team. Is he a more impactful bull rusher, like you said, right? Because I mean, he might be. He's strong as hell, and you can see him being a more impactful bull rusher as a pass rusher, but certainly in the run game, very disruptive. So I'm always wondering, like, how do I fit these guys next to Dexter Lawrence, and do their traits translate to something more impactful at the next level? Collins might be right in that wheelhouse of guys who can do more in the NFL level just because he's next to Dexter Lawrence than you saw in college.
But I just think more importantly, the Giants need people that could stop the run. I mean, that's just
absolutely.
more importantly. I mean, and especially, hey, do they need that in the secondary and their corners? Yes. Do they need that in their safeties outside of Tyler Nubin? Yes, 100%. I think that all those things are necessary as well. But I mean, the one thing that's been constant among the two defensive coordinators that have come in here is that both of them have a pedigree and a background of being literally the number one run defense in the league, literally number one. And then they come in here and then they're the worst. Well, what's the commonality? I think it's the personnel. Get somebody that can play next to Dexter Lawrence and stop the freaking run. Maybe get some edge rushers in here that could set a freaking edge too. I don't know. All that seems to make sense and is common sense. Ready to move on to Marcus Mbow?
Yeah. Sure.
He's a fun one. Well, here about first. First, I want to talk to you about something. Today's episode is sponsored by Mando, the whole body deodorant that's changing the game. As someone who's tried it and needs it, I could tell you this stuff works everywhere. Pits, thighs, and yes, even those awkward spots, your balls. Created by a doctor who saw how BO was being misdiagnosed, Mando is clinically proven to control odor all day long for up to 72 hours. Their aluminum-free formula is powered by mandelic acid to stop the odor before it starts. I like that. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, and free shipping. I love things that are free. And as a special offer for our listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code that equates to over 40% off your starter pack. So use code TalkinGiants at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. All right, Marcus Mbow, 6'4", 302 pounds. I just took an ad break. Monte and Sal are sitting here thinking, what just went on? It's because I just read an ad. Marcus Mbow, 6'4", 302 pounds from the University of Purdue, which was such a fun, exciting, awesome watch to just watch Purdue play football this year in their one-win team. Mbow's 22 years old. He has 18 starts at right tackle, 14 at right guard. Has started at right tackle since 2023. He's 68th on the consensus board. Dane Brugler, I like to put Dane Brugler's rankings when there's maybe sometimes a divide. Dane Brugler, a little bit of a divide at 84th. And yes, Mbow had a top 30 visit with the Giants.
Yeah, Marcus Mbow, he was an interesting watch for sure. I mean, a guy's a former basketball player. You alluded to that earlier, Justin, but something that really shows up is a highly athletic player, very mobile. You could definitely see it in his pass protection. He has the ability to get depth in his pass sets really quickly. I think he mirrors defenders very well. It's very fluid, and the athleticism, it pops when he does it. And one thing I also really liked about him, I felt he always kept his head on a swivel. He really was good at anticipating twists and blitzes and other stunts and whatnot. And he was able to process the defensive pressure. But overall, his lateral movement and agility was really like stood out in pass protection. However, so I did think he had some tendencies to play high, and I think that could limit some of his effectiveness in the run game and some of his anchor at times. He has I thought he had a really good initial punch, and he had really like good pop when he was in run protection, but I didn't necessarily think he had the strength to really finish blocks like some of the other guys we will be discussing. Definitely needs better consistency altogether, both in pass protection and in the run game. But certainly, especially from his athleticism, you saw very high end things. And if you look at like a zone blocking scheme, I think those types of offenses really be drooling over the athleticism that he has. I did see some occasional balance issues near a guy. I saw some lunging stuff. But overall, I thought it was a really good mobile tackle, technically sound in pass protection, but definitely, can get his pads a little bit lower to help, develop some more power to his game. What do you think, Sal?
Well, I'm gonna jump in here before Sal goes
But
because I
No, go
know
ahead.
this is your guy, Sal, and I kind of want to set you up here intentionally. Embo plays like a wild man. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of fun and interesting to watch. He's aggressive and he's looking to seek and destroy, and it's wild. Like, and if you watch the Notre Dame game, dudes are just on the ground. They're getting laid out. They're getting destroyed for numerous reasons. Whether it's that club rep that I think has gone viral a couple times, where it's probably a swing pass to the opposite side of the field, but Mbo just boom clubs an edge rusher and just winds up right on all fours. Whether he's just whether it's a drive block and he's putting guys on the ground, or he's pulling out in the open field and we're hunting for linebackers, safeties, and DBs, and good luck to you. He plays like a wild man. But Sal, here's my question. We talked to him at the Senior Bowl, and the first thing that he says to us, we're talking, oh, what do you want to prove down here this week? He says, I'm a tackle. I want to be a tackle, and that's what I want to prove down here. Is Marcus Mbow going to be a tackle in the NFL? I don't think a lot of evaluators see it that way, even if he wants to stick at tackle.
I like Embo a lot, actually. But the things going against him are that he's a little undersized for tackle, and his arm length is not quite there, right? Now he's got a similar arm length to Will Campbell. Not to say he's Will Campbell, but that's a knock on Will Campbell, right? Who's a
Yeah.
very technically refined tackle in every other way. It's just, yeah, your arm's gonna be long enough. Um, so I don't know if he's gonna stick a tackle. Another guy that I considered comping him to. Um, who is a very similar size profile is Zach Tom, who came out a couple of years ago from Wake Forest, and had positional versatility. And was, if you remember, everybody thought this guy's going to play center at the NFL level, and he's been really like damn near elite at tackle, for the Packers. So I think Embo is a bit of a project, but I think he's a center. I'll be honest. When I
Mm.
watch him, I see elite center potential in Embo because his size, 6'4", 305, 310, wherever he lands, that's kind of right where you want your centers to be. He plays with pretty good leverage for that size. And you guys mentioned it. He is such an elite athlete. Like he fires off the snaps. He's like I kept thinking watching him, like this is the anti Evan Neal. Like Evan Neal looks like he's in slow motion trying to stand up, and this guy like just fires off the snap, and he's all over the place. He's like cutting off angles, and he's pushing guys wide, and he's creating longer arcs for speed rushers. And if your quarterback is the kind of guy who wants to take a deep drop back, that's really good. Like he's going to give you that longer angle to give you a little time to throw the football. And like you said, Monty, he's so quick to he knows what's going on around him, and he'll quickly
Mhm.
disengage and take on somebody who's looping around and take on that pass rusher. So he's so athletic. You can see him move there. And when he gets to the second level, I mean, he's a finisher. He gets that second level, he seals off guys, he finishes them off, and is a real asset in the run game. I'm thinking, what's his weakness? Is probably that I don't know if he's going to be strong enough and big enough to take on the role of a full-time tackle. But as a center who's as athletic as he is and as strong as he is for a center, I think this can really translate. I think this is a guy who can hold up a center. And you can say, well, is he strong enough to take on the nose tackles in the NFL? I think
That's
that's
what
going to
I'm
be
wondering. I'm wondering
right?
about power. I'm wondering about guys that are 40 pounds heavier than him. Because really, I think how he wins as a tackle, especially, I mean, let's just look at this as a run blocker. Because I think that could be a little bit easier to judge about, okay, let's watch your run blocking as a tackle and see how that translates to guard, as opposed to, I think pass blocking is just so different in terms of what you're doing. He wins by utilizing angles and just angling guys off.
Absolutely.
Unless we're talking about, all right, to drive block and right, that's your assignment. You just got to go left and just drive your feet, right? But I think he mainly utilizes angles and his body positioning as opposed to fully just controlling. So that's the only question that I have. Guys that are 30, 40 pounds heavier than you. Dexter Lawrence is 340 pounds. Now, Dexter Lawrence is a freak. But guys that are that much heavier than you, are you going to get pushed back on the interior, especially at center? Are you going to get pushed back on the interior like that, where it's a detriment to you in the NFL? He can get off and he can pop you. I don't have doubt about that. But just
we don't know.
The losing as the rep goes on is what I'm a little concerned about with power.
We don't know, but I like how quickly he gets to a spot and anchors himself, and I like how quickly he gets leverage. I think these are things that can translate well, right? He's a guy who understands body positioning. He understands, hand usage. I mean, he's another guy who's a little wide with his hands, but I think that some of that is just the way he plays tackle. I think on the interior, this guy, you can coach him up. Can he play tackle? I think so. I think he can be a swing tackle. Right, I definitely think he can be a swing tackle in the NFL. I don't know if he's a starting tackle in the NFL, but on the interior, I definitely think he can play. And I mean, I think he can be a serviceable to good guard. But I really believe this is the guy I would take the time to coach. You guys talked about this, right? I want to take a guy who I'm going to develop. I don't need him to play right away, right? I want to develop him and say, where do your strengths lie? And I really feel like this guy can profile well as a center. And I would like to see the Giants take a guy like him and say, you're sitting on the bench and developing as an interior lineman this year. We're not playing you a tackle. We've got someone else to play that right now. And specifically, can you play center? Because John Michael Schmitz has been nothing short of a disaster the first couple of years. And though he showed a little bit of progress last year, he just looks like a guy that I don't see a ton of upside here. And I have a feeling they're going to be moving on from him at some point in the not so distant future, unless he takes a dramatic leap in his game. I'd like to know that there's somebody we're developing who's young and has the athletic attributes to be an impact center. And I feel like this guy could do it. You could just say take a center, and that's fine too. But I think, again, positional versatility matters here. A guy who can play guard, center, tackle. I'll take a swing on a guy like that. Again, we're talking about pick 65 to 90 in that range.
Yeah.
I would definitely consider him there.
Yeah, and I think that matters to Joe Schoen too. I mean, clearly positional versatility. I mean, it's what really kind of attracted him to Azudu that first year. We've done the whole Ben Bredesen, you're going to be a center. Ben Bredesen, you're going to be a guard. Greg Van Roten, you're showing up to training camp. You're going to be a center for a week, and then you're going to move to guard. So we know that he likes that. And I am 100%. If Marcus Mbow somehow is, like, if the plan is for Marcus Mbow to be starting for the Giants in the year 2025, I don't want that. And I actually, like, I think that would ruin him. I'm like, don't do that, because then you're going to kill this kid's confidence. He's going to have bad reps. His footwork is wild. He's going to play like a wild man. There's going to be bad, like, awful plays, and I think that's just going to kind of kill him. You have to, like, the Giants have set themselves up in terms of their infrastructure, where I especially like it with the interior, because a lot of these interior linemen in the NFL, like, we thought that Kenyon Green and Zion Johnson were just going to set the world on fire, and it sometimes takes these guys 2 to 3, similar to their counterparts on the interior defensive line. It just sometimes takes these guys and they struggle as rookies, and it's brutal. It is brutal. The cleanest prospects on the interior, especially on the offensive line, really, really do struggle. So I do not want Mbow touching the field unless he has to, because, probably what's going to happen with us anyway is 3 starters will get hurt, and then Mbow will have to play, and then we'll accept whatever comes our way then.
But it shouldn't be the plan. I'm with you.
No.
Like for once, take guys with some upside and talent and just develop them.
Yeah.
Take the time to develop them.
And they actually have an infrastructure. It's not a great infrastructure, but they have an infrastructure where they could actually do that now. And that if there is a refreshing situation about the Giants' offensive line, I guess we can say it's that. So,
Yep.
cool. All right, we're moving on. Joshua Farmer from Florida State, 6'3", 305 pounds, 22 years old. He's 77th on the consensus board. Did have a top 30 visit with the Giants. Oh, look, another guy with 95th percentile arm length, 85th percentile wingspan, and 84th percentile hand size. So let's talk about Joshua Farmer from Florida State.
Yeah, I'll take this one. And I'll be honest, I don't love. I'll just start with saying I don't love Joshua Farmer. I think a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
do love him. But I took some time watching his film, and I he's got the measurables. I agree with that, right? And I think he can be a good run stopper, and at times he is a good run stopper. But this is a guy that has very little pass rush arsenal, yet I think he plays like he's a pass rusher, and that bothers me because there are plenty of plays I watch where his job seems to be to contain the interior and maintain gap discipline, and he abandons it to try to get around a guard with a swim move or something like that, and teams run right up the middle at him. Um, so I saw some discipline issues, which to me is a big red flag. If you're an interior defender, you can't be somebody that I can't rely upon to hold your station and make life difficult for a ball carrier. And I just saw that way too often on film. So I'm going to start with the negatives. I didn't love that stuff. I didn't think he's explosive off the snap. I felt like he's a guy just average at best getting off the snap. Um, while I think he starts with really good leverage, that's a good thing. I think he starts really low. He loses it almost immediately, And like, for example, a guy whose leverage we loved last year was Chris Jenkins, who's now on the Bengals, right? Chris Jenkins had elite leverage off the snap continuously, but he kept it, right? He would fire off the snap, stay low, low man wins, never lost his point of attack. And with Farmer, he starts really low, which is great, but then he fires up and he goes almost straight up on his reps, and then he gets pushback. And so I saw some technical issues with him, and I just don't know if this is a coaching thing, an experience thing, but I didn't love it. But what he's good at, I think he's plenty strong. I think he has good, strong hands. He can deliver a jarring punch, which is important. And I think he can be like a good two gapper. I think if he stays true to what he's doing and he's disciplined, where he's just staying low, firing up, and he's punching right away and holding his ground, he's a really good two gapper. And he can play like he can be very aggressive, but I did not see enough in his pass rush game for me to excuse some of the lack of gap discipline and the lapses in the run game. So I wasn't thrilled about him. I don't know how you felt, Monty, but that was sort of my take watching him.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that this is a guy that you're taking with the expectation that you need to develop him a little bit. And obviously with the idea of you having Andre Patterson, that's, something that might be more enticing to you. I thought he could be explosive, but I felt like he was late a lot getting off the snap. I
Oh,
didn't think
yeah.
that yeah, I felt like he'd be the last one off the snaps times or the first and get a penalty. One of the two.
Mm-hmm.
But when he did get off, now you mentioned, I thought he brought powerful hands. I thought he used his length really well. And, as Justin pointed out, it's another guy with really good arm length. And, as you've looked at some of the guys that we've drafted, late, that's something that's obviously important to him. And I do think he uses it pretty well. And I do think he's one of these, high motor players who kind of just, plays with his hair on fire. I do think he does that. And I think he can show the ability to be a two gapper. I think everything that you said as far as concerns go along with that is totally valid. And I definitely saw that. Yeah. And I definitely, think he needs more development as a pass rusher 100%. He just doesn't really have much of a pass rush plan, doesn't really string moves together. And a guy who I just really saw go hot and cold. I saw some good flashes from him, but other times you really, kind of just go a long time without seeing anything from.
Monty, we recorded for an hour, and I just noticed that sick Eli Manning painting behind you.
Oh
Um,
yeah, bro. My wife got me that.
That's awesome. Joshua Farmer frustrates me because he's inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very inconsistent. Where talked about the arm length, talk about the hand size, and it's like there's stuff that's there, and there's flashes of him using his hands and him using that strength combo as well. But there are also plenty of times where he just runs into offensive lineman with his head down, and there's no plan to win.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, dude, well, let's use the strength, let's use the arms. Like, why are we not using what we got here? And I agree with Sal, where it's like, why am I watching a player with these kind of measurables, and he's so much better as a pass rusher as opposed to a run defender, where at a 481 defensive lineman, he was 286th in run stop rate this year. But his advanced pass rush numbers among draft eligible players are actually pretty decent. He was 10th in pass rush productivity among draft eligible players in true pass sets, and he was 20th in win rate in true pass sets. So like that kind of advanced stuff, you kind of have to search for it a little bit. And that surprised me, but also didn't surprise me, since I think he can show it. The run stop rate, like I hate that. Like I just for a player that with his traits like that needs to be better, and he does have a high motor, and I think he does play at times like he's a bull in a china shop, but it needs to be shown more. And I think if this was a player that was more consistent and did show more, I think he would be a top 50 player. Shocker, if a player was better and more consistent, he would be drafted higher. Yes,
Right.
But understand the context in which I'm saying this. So Farmer does frustrate me a little bit. I think, again, this would be hey, thank God we have a positional coach, again, Andre Patterson, that we like and trust, that can get a lot out of him. And I think there's a reason why this guy would go closer to where we're picking. 65, I think, is a reach.
Yeah.
I would be way more comfortable at 99. That's why there's a, hey, that gap between 65 and 99. I would love if there was a, that pick 99, that comp pick is a long way away. And the difference in player you're going to get from those two spots are going to be quite different, where a guy like Farmer could be gone. And, we're talking about how this guy frustrates us a little bit to a certain degree, but I do like Farmer. I think he's good. I wish he was better. So
I'd be very comfortable not touching him till listen, I wouldn't be shocked if this guy slides in the draft and is like a mid-day 3 player. Because I think all the stuff we're talking about is just, it's there, it's on tape, and it's baffling. And I don't know if I want to invest a top 100, pick on this guy. And I think a lot of teams might feel that way. Maybe somebody takes a swing on the traits, but wouldn't shock me if he's sitting there in the 5th round.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Well, if he's sitting there in the 5th round, it's a different story. I'm like, I think we should maybe do it.
Yeah.
We should maybe pull the trigger.
We've seen better players fall, right? And so I don't love them. That's how I feel. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, bring in the guys that Andre Patterson wants to bring in to work out, and he can tell us what he thinks of these guys.
All right, we have 3 players left. We're done talking about the players that as of April 14th, we're done talking about the players that the Giants have brought in for top 30 visits, but still have 3 players left. Next is Tate Ratledge, interior offensive lineman, 6'6", 308 pounds, from the University of Georgia. He is 24 years old. He is 67th on the consensus board. Dane Brugler has him up to 53rd.
Wow.
The main thing that I just want to say about Ratledge is he is a self-described as a dirtbag, and the first thing that people are going to be talking about is the identity that he's going to bring to this offensive line. And also, do yourself a favor and look up a picture of this guy. Mullet and stash. He's basically Billy from Stranger Things, except he's a 308-pound offensive lineman that has that type of style. And Billy from Stranger Things was set in the 80s, and I feel like that's exactly where Tate's coming from here.
Yeah, man. I mean, while you're at it, go ahead and Google. There's a video of him running the 40 to Freebird with his mullet.
Oh yeah,
that
was the guy there.
that was incredible. Yes, that was him. Tate Ratledge, your redneck lineman that every offensive line needs. He is what he describes himself. He is a physically imposing guard. He plays with tremendous power. He's a guy who intensely shows up both in the run and the pass game, but he excels as a run blocker. It's where the Mauler mentality really shows out. He has good leverage, it allows him to dominate at the point of attack. He has a really quick first step that makes him effective, I think, multiple schemes. His ability to handle stunts, he has a strong anchor, really good grip strength that would make him reliable in pass protection as well. However, I did notice his hand placement can get a little bit too wide at times. Out of all the guys I kind of watched, I ended up seeing it kind of just on the outside of the defender's shoulders way too often. His footwork can appear unbalanced. So some areas that need refinement to there. But a guy who I'm sure Sal has the RS score stuff, but a guy who tested extremely well, a guy that has a really high upside, somebody who I liked, and that athleticism popped on the screen, way before you saw how he did at the combine. But sure as hell helps to see that this guy tested as like an elite athlete. So he's a guy who I would love to add to this line from a mentality standpoint and just from being a damn good player with high upside.
Yeah, I mean, he tested elite. If did we have him as guard one or two? He was either one or two for us, if I'm not mistaken, right?
It
Interior offensive lineman.
was two, I think.
Okay, and we were high on him when we reviewed him. This was way back when, right? And he just was solid and consistent all year. But I remember one of the things we talked about was we're not sure how this guy's going to test. Like he looks explosive, but we don't know if he's going to be an elite athlete because he plays like a mauler. And then he goes to the combine and he throws up a 9.98 RAS overall composite score, which, forget the composite score. Look at the components that matter. His three cone was a 7.38. Now he didn't do the short shuttle, which I mean you want to see that. But he was quick in the three cone. He ran a 4.9740, which for an lineman is insane. That, and you've mentioned that before, that for all offensive linemen, anything like under 4.9, you're talking about guys who end up going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
And so
wow.
he's like, and there's a bunch of them. Monte has a great stat on that. So he's like closing in on that. Um, 32-inch vertical, 9 foot 5 inch broad jump, 32-inch arm length, 10.38-inch hands, what was he like 6'5", 308, something like that. He's a big dude. He's big and strong. He's fast. Um, he does look like he got, he like left a Leonard Skinner concert and decided to play football instead, right? And then like, the fact that he's running a freebird just tells it. Wasn't he wearing like a silver chain or something while he was running too?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
he was
that's
wearing like
right.
this big ass chain while he was running a 4.9 something. Um, Great athlete. I mean, at the end of the day, he answered the athletic question. On tape, he pops. He's explosive. He's just a mauler. I mean, you put him on your own line. I think this is one of those guys. You just put him there. You don't think about it. He's going to be a solid right guard for years to come. He's going to be a dominant force in the run game, and he's shown the athleticism to climb the second level and be a real force in zone blocking. But he can be a man gap blocker too because he's strong enough and athletic enough where he can do this on his own and not even be dependent on his zone scheme. So very versatile. I mean, I think would you say Brugler had him at like 50 something?
Yeah,
Um,
Brugler had him at hello 53rd.
yeah. To me, I'd be very, very shocked if he got out of the top 50. Like really surprised if this guy, because this is a plug and play starting interior offensive lineman that I think teams will just take and say 1/5 of my line is completely solved with this pick. Guys like that, I don't see them getting out of like the top 50. So I wouldn't be shocked if he's taken at the top of the second round. I mean, again, I think if the Giants want him, they're probably gonna have to swing on him at the top of the second round or make a trade or something to get into like the middle of the second to get him. But I'd be surprised if he's there sitting there at pick 65. If he is, very high on the list, but I'd be shocked if he's there, honestly.
Aeneas Peebles. Speaking of guys with short arms, here you go.
Mhm.
Aeneas Peebles, 6 foot, 282 pounds from Virginia Tech. He is almost going to be 24 years old. I think he's going to be 24 by the time the season starts. He was number one in win rate among FBS defensive linemen, but he's really small. 2.5 percentile in height, 14th percentile in weight, 4th percentile arm length, and 11th percentile in wingspan. But Peebles is a fun player to watch. Stood out particularly down in the Senior Bowl when I was down there. Who wants to talk about Aeneas Peebles?
Oh, I'll definitely take Aeneas Peebles. I've been talking about Aeneas Peebles since last year with Monty. I was like, or at the beginning of the year, I said he was one of our like let's watch like my guys. Let's watch this guy because he
Mm-hmm.
was really good at Duke. If I recall, that's where he was last year, if I'm not mistaken. And and he did it again. he put up a ridiculous year. So I think you went through some of the stuff. I mean, he graded out phenomenally. 17.8% pass rush win rate on the interior defensive line. That is just a banana score. So for those who don't know, the pass rush win rate, is a fairly good predictor of success as a pass rusher in the NFL. If you're over 20% as an edge rusher, that predicts elite production.
Yeah.
If you're above 15% as an edge rusher, it's probably pretty good production. Anything above like 10% is really good for an interior. 17% is ridiculous. Like, you're getting into edge rusher territory as a pass rusher on the interior. And in true pass set rush rates, I don't have the number, but I think he was in the 30% range or something ridiculous, something or 20 something percent in true pass rush grade. Lined up mainly in the B gap, 384 reps there this year, but he did line up in the A gap. He lined up over tackle. He lined up as a 5-tech 17 times. He's definitely versatile. 2 batted balls, 31 hurries, 3 hits, 3 sacks, wins a lot. And when you watch him, he's a pass rusher. Now, he's a good run defender. He's not he's not a liability in the run game, but that's not his calling card. His calling card is as a pass rusher. And when you talk about fit, at least, I mean, I hate to do this for Shane Bowen because I don't know if he'll be here in a year, but he's really great on stunts and twists. He moves all over the line. His go-to move is a spin move. I don't know if you watch him a lot, but he will set up guards with an inside jab, and then he'll spin right around them, and before you know it, he's in the backfield and he's taking down quarterbacks. The game against Miami, he was a terror. He had Cam Ward in hell that game. He was chasing him around all over the field. So he did it against good lines. His size never seemed to pop on tape. Like, it doesn't seem to bother him, right? And now, will it show up in the NFL? Will it be an issue? That's a very fair concern, but I think that'll be hedged into his value of where he's taken. If he was 2 inches taller, I think that you're talking about a guy who's a top 50 pick. Easy. So the question is, will you take a swing on him at his height at pick 90, whatever, right? Wherever we're 99, I forgot where we are. If he's there, I would. You might be getting a pass rush demon on the interior here. Now, you still have to couple him with a guy like, the guys we just talked about who are the run defending monsters. But we probably need 2 guys. I don't think our defensive line is so good that we can turn our nose up at somebody who's really excellent at one trait like he is. So I would be happy to take him, hedging his size into the value around pick 99, 105. If you could get Peebles there, I think you'll be hard pressed to find a more impactful player at that position. So I love the guy. I think for what he does a great job.
I mean, you're mentioning him around 99, 105. This is the first player that I didn't mention their consensus board ranking at the top. His board ranking right now, it's 136. It's peaked at 103, and I think that was around the Senior Bowl time where I feel like just guys that go there, they get a little bit of a bump. And then it's come down since then at 136. So that'll be between the Giants' 4th-round pick at 105 and then their 5th-round pick in 154. So it'll be around there where, if he lasts that long, I will be like, oh, yeah, Aeneas Peebles, I don't care if he doesn't fit the size criteria of Shane Bowen. Like this, his trump card is his quickness because of his size. He needs quick feet. He needs quick hands. He needs to, move well laterally, and he does all of those things. And at that point, like if we're talking about a day 3 pick, get somebody that wins, get somebody that stands out, and Aeneas Peebles 100% does that.
He can easily one gap. Again, talking about the advantage of Dexter Lawrence. This is the kind of player that you can take somewhere on day 3 and say, I'm taking advantage of the fact that I have Dexter Lawrence on my team. This guy's an elite one gapper, and he will be able to one gap all day long on the Giants with Dexter Lawrence sitting there.
And you were right, Sal, by the way, about his pass rush win rate in true pass sets. 27.3%. Number 1 in his class among draft eligible players. That is really crazy. I mean, and it's Derek Harmon that's number 2 at 26.9 in true pass sets. That's really, really crazy.
Yeah. And it pops when you watch him. This is a guy who has just a really good pass rush arsenal, and plays with so much speed. Such a talented one gapper. Yes, he is not a perfect prospect. He definitely has his limitations, as you guys talked about. He's not a 2 gapper. He has some issues tackling, and he can definitely struggle against double teams and all of that. But man, if you like Sal talked about, if you could couple this guy with like a big body two gapper and use them and interchange them depending on what you need, he could be a really valuable piece to this defensive line.
And I think it's important to point out, like, I think sometimes people look at the size and the measurements and say, I'm out. To me, it's about value, right? Like, these are not perfect prospects when you get out of like the top 50. Their limitations in terms of measurables or things on tape, they're usually hedged into where you would take them,
Yeah.
right? That does not make them non-impactful players. You're just saying, I'm willing to take them at 100. I'm just not willing to take you at 65. And I think that's a perfectly reasonable way to look at a guy like Peebles, right? Now, would you overdraft him a little at 105 versus 130? But who gives a shit? Like, if
Right.
he's a good pass rusher for you, you win. And
Yeah.
that's how I look at it.
I 100% like how I evaluate draft prospects, because I don't consider myself like I watch a guy and I'm like, oh, that's like I'm gonna give you a first round grade, or like, oh, you're
Right.
you're the 15th ranked prospect on the board, but I feel confident to give you a third round. Like, that's just not how I watch things. So I 100% do watch guys with like, all right, this is where they're kind of ranked. So this is what I know what to expect. Am I gonna watch when I watch a player like who's ranked 134th? Hell yeah, I'm gonna love you, because it's like if you flash and if you do great things, it's like, well, I would love to take you at around there, and I feel like I'm gonna get a steal. So I've believed that for years, that I 100% watch players and I evaluate players. Like, I will be way more critical of a player that is ranked higher who I don't love versus even a player that's ranked like in the 130s that I view as a steal. Like, I may just talk about them way higher because that's just how I feel.
Yep.
Last but not least, fellas, this is a short episode for you. You guys, what's your average length that you guys go? It's
we're
2
pushing
hours?
2 hours. We're pushing about 2 hours now. We're not for everybody, right? We're like a very detail oriented.
No, but that's why I love you guys, and that's why it's so good, because people do love that. Last but not least, we're going to be talking about Aireontae Ersery, and I have that right. I know I have that right. 6'6", 331 pounds from the University of Minnesota. He is an offensive lineman, recently did just turn 23 years old. My question is he going to be a tackle in the NFL, or is he going to be a guard? He's a 3-year starter at left tackle with 38 starts. I typically don't like to go out on a limb and say, like, oh, a player that has all these starts and 3 years of experience at one spot. I typically don't like to go on a limb and say, oh, let's just move him to guard, since that is typically a draft thing that draft people kind of like to do. But I do think Ersery has a path to being transitioned to guard because of his unique size, because of his power. And also I think he struggles with like inside counters and quick movers as a tackle. And I think that's a lot easier to hide at guard. I think he could be a good to okay tackle. I think he has a higher ceiling as a guard. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree with you, Justin. I know Sal is a little bit higher than I was on Urser. I mean, obviously there's a lot to like about him. He has a fantastic frame. I think this is a guy at guard, especially. He's a people mover. He's a guy who just be very good in the run game and get movement. Strong anchor, but I agree with you. I think his feet can look slow at times. I think he can really get abused by speed rushers sometimes, especially, on counter moves and whatnot. And I think there's some punch timing issues that I noticed that really kind of allowed these defenders to counter. But I think moving them inside, not leaving him on an island like he would be at tackle, I think could help him. And I think he could really, help, especially in the run game. What do you think, Sal?
Yeah, I mean, I think he can stick a tackle. I think he has the measurables and the power to stay as a right tackle, specifically in the NFL. Right. I think this is a guy who he can be a real plus in the run game because he can really bull guys like forward, and he can be a dominant run blocking right tackle. I'm with you that some of the concerns with like balance and other things do play a role here in evaluating him. Um, and he may not be a great tackler, he may be better at guard, but I mean, he held his own against Abdul Carter. And I always bring this up in my critique of Abdul Carter is like when he went up against the NFL the true NFL eligible tackles, he wasn't what people saw, with the other games. And he struggled to defeat Ersery, especially with his bull rush and other things. So he's a strong dude. I think he can stick at minimum. I think he will be a versatile lineman again. At minimum, I think he's a guy you could play a tackle in a pinch. I don't like him as a left tackle in the NFL, even though that's where he played. I don't like him a lot at left tackle. I think that the speed and bendy edge rushers that typically go up against left tackles they'll just have him in hell. But I think as a right tackle where you can project his run blocking, I think he can be solid. But yeah, at minimum, you're talking about a mauler who can show up on the interior because he is massive,
He's
and he will.
huge.
Yeah, he's a big. What is he like 6'6", 340, something like that. He's a big
Yeah.
guy, and he will just destroy people on the interior if he can work in a close space. And some of his movement issues aren't completely exploited. So again, a versatile, swing tackle / starting guard is how I look at him. And I'll say the same thing I say with everybody. It depends on where you take him and where you value him. When we started the season, he was probably in the running for a top 5 tackle in this class. He's certainly not that, but he still has the upside to be a guy you can see playing tackle at the NFL level if you need him to, and be a really good guard. To me, that's third round value.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I have him.
All right, I want to reward people that made it this far. And we're going to do this very quickly because I know we could start a whole other show with this right now. 30 seconds. Who do you think will be the pick at 3? Who do you want the pick at 3 to be? Monty.
I think the pick will most likely be Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter seems to be the pick. It's going to be him or Travis Hunter, depending on who's on the board, I think. But everything's indicating towards Travis Hunter going to. I still hope they take Shedeur Sanders. My number one hope is that they find a quarterback that they're in love with. And if Shedeur Sanders is that guy, I think he's worthy of taking a swing on there. You get a couple years to figure out if he's the guy. I'm not enamored with the quarterback class next year. I'm not as down on the upside of Shedeur Sanders as some other people. I think it's worth trying to figure out to see if you have a guy there. And I desperately think we need a swing on quarterback. And I do think he's worth the pick.
Sal?
I think they're going to take Abdul Carter when all is said and done. I think a lot of the noise coming out right now is a disagreement between Joe Shane and Brian Dable. I don't know where the chips land here, but I feel like if you don't have consensus on a quarterback, odds are you're probably not going to take the quarterback. So I think they're going to take Carter. I definitely want them to take Shedeur Sanders. I'm definitely higher on him than I think a lot of people are. I do see a franchise quarterback. I see a guy who what he does well translates very well to the NFL in terms of his ability to keep an offense in rhythm, timing, ball placement, throwing a catchable football. I think that translates very well for the Giants, especially with the type of players we have. And I would swing on him. And I'm not in the camp that I'm afraid to take a quarterback at 3 if he doesn't have elite athletic upside or things like that. I think quarterback is a far more nuanced position. So I hope they take Sanders, but I think at the end of the day, the most likely pick is going to be Abdul Carter.
You know what's crazy? I'm looking on the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now, Abdul Carter's minus 320, Travis Hunter's plus 250, Shedeur Sanders is plus 500. I mean, if you got $50 to throw around, you can win 300. I mean, even if you want to throw 10, you can win 60.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy. John Mara walked into this offseason saying that the goal is to find the franchise quarterback. And they haven't. And there is still the most important event that you can probably find a franchise quarterback in. Every year, there's an opportunity for you to find one, right? That event is coming up next Thursday. And the fact that I think the Giants, Joe Shane, Brian Dable, and John Mara, they were all kind of like in locksync as the season ended and saying in one way, shape, or form that we are looking for a quarterback, and that quarterback that we're looking for is going to be a long-term answer. And now we fast forwarded these last couple months, and now that goal is not going to happen. I don't know. I think they had to save their job somehow, and I think that player was Shedeur Sanders. And knowing John Mara, he likes the marketability. I think he can buy into the marketability of Shedeur Sanders and Malik Neighbors together, that they're, the New York's, new buddy cops and everything like that. All the fun that you can have and all the jerseys you can sell and the shit that he cares about more than actually winning football games, because Saquon Barkley walks and it's not, oh my God, what's going to happen to our offense? It's, oh my God, we lost our most popular player. First words that come out of his mouth on television about Saquon Barkley. So there you go. If you want to make some money, throw $10 on Shedeur Sanders at plus 500. If you lose, then it's $10. And if you lose, don't blame me. There you go. Fellas, I want to thank you for joining me. This was a lot of fun. I'm excited for the draft. I'm nervous for the draft, but much like every year, I think I'm at a point where I want it to be over, and I want the conversation and the speculation, and we're buying into this rumor. We're buying into this. We're analyzing how many people are at stupid showcases and workouts and this and that and who's there, and it all gets to end. We get to take a breath, and then we get to watch this team lose again come September. So, fellas, thank you for coming on. I'm going to leave your YouTube in the bio. He's a Giant. It's an NFL Draft Giants podcast that's centered all year. They're on Spotify, Apple Podcast, all the podcast apps too. Fellas, if there's anything else you want to plug, feel free.
Yeah, no, that's it. I would definitely check out our last episode we did with Matt Waldman. It was a great conversation. But thank you for having us, Justin, and it was a great time.
Yep, thank you, Justin. And once again, best of luck to you. I know you're gonna be fine, but we're pulling for you to be very successful, and I think you will be.
Thank you, fellas. I'm gonna be hopefully having on another guest later this week. I don't fully know what we're gonna be talking about yet, but you're going to find out when you find out, when it's posted, and then you'll see. I'm still working on an outro to the show, so I'll see you on Friday, or I'll see you on Thursday, or whenever I record this. Still working on an outro. Peace. I'll see you next time.